What are your impressions of what they've built and how Ryan Poles has kind of restructured that team?
Well, you know what's interesting is we were here last year talking about the Bears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was excited last year. And now I'm out there yesterday, right? New quarterback, new running back, 2 new receivers, new tight end, defensive addition. Like, it's
2 new coordinators.
It's a different team,
Mm-hmm.
different team. And the great thing about it for the Bears' sake is that, and we were talking about this before, if Caleb Williams is what people say, and if he is what the Bears think he is, and they think he is that, then this team's set up for the next 12 to 15 years to be relevant and competitive.
That is incredible. That is worthy of applause. It has been at least that long since we felt that way.
And I told Peggy, like, my very first newspaper job was in Denver covering John Elway.
Wow.
And I started covering him in 1990, 35 years ago. And every year, I covered him for the final 8 seasons of his career. Every year, the Broncos were competitive, relevant. They didn't always have the kind of season that they wanted or their fans wanted, but every year they would go to camp thinking, we got a shot this year.
Yeah.
And if Caleb is that, for the next 15 years, Bears fans are going to go into camp thinking, we've got a shot this year.
We were also talking about, I said he's very professional. He carries himself like a professional, like he was literally born to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And we joke about, he pulled that little girl, he walked over, gave her a big hug during the game on Thursday night, made her cry. He didn't have to do that. He could have signed something and tossed it up there.
Right.
And my immediate reaction was, Jay Cutler never would have done anything like that.
No.
And I know people laugh and they go, oh, so what? What does that tell you about him? Well, when he says at his opening press conference on draft night that I can't wait to get to know who the security guards are and the janitors and the secretaries and all that, it tells you more about the man.
Well, I'll tell you this. Yesterday, in talking to a bunch of Bears officials, coaches, whatnot, that was one thing that they highlighted to me about Caleb, is that he's very aware of who he is, what his job means, and how that pertains to every individual in the building, so that he's meeting the chef, he's meeting the security guards, he's meeting the custodian, the janitor, he's meeting everybody and getting to know them. And so I just think he's very cognizant of his significance and his importance in Chicago's football stratosphere.
Yeah.
And it is, he is of vital importance. And I feel like he's handled everything with this, like, just awareness is right on and off the field, the awareness, but he's just handled everything like he was meant to do this. Nothing seems too big for him. The spotlight doesn't seem too big for him. He understands the role, but specifically in Chicago, I feel like he's already grasping what he means to the fans. Now, the Bears have been busy the last couple of days bolstering their defensive front. Do you feel like adding Darrell Taylor and Chris Williams is depth, but are they going to continue to look for another edge rusher to complement Montez Sweat? Is that something that they're really worried about?
I think it's hard to think that on August 25th, you're going to go out and add somebody who's going to be a big difference maker. Like they went out and added Montez Sweat last year. They brought in a couple of little pieces like that. You can't get everything done right away. It just doesn't work like that. So that's why you bring in back-end roster guys that you hope can provide some production, some depth, and that's what they've done this week. It wouldn't surprise me if they look to trade a couple of players where they felt like they had depth, get back a 7th-round draft pick for a certain player where they feel deep. That could happen. But obviously somebody would have to be interested in a certain player too, because everybody's got to cut 30-plus players.
Yeah.
Right.
So everybody's looking to get back something for nothing in the end, and it's not always easy to do.
Yurko and I talked about this on the post-game show the other night, is the depth at defensive back. Their secondary is so strong. They got some young kids that if they release them, even if they try to hide them on the practice squad, they will get picked up right away. Running back and wide receiver room are the other 2 rooms that they are very deep in. And the biggest name, the enigma to Bears fans, is Velus Jones Jr. Ryan Poles seems to have a attachment to his former third-round pick.
Well, naturally, it's his first offensive selection. I think that makes sense.
And Ryan Poles has never released one of his own draft picks that was drafted higher than the 5th round. This year, he has Velus Jones Jr., Tyler Scott, Dominique Robinson. He's a 7th-round pick, so he doesn't count as that high of a pick. But as Adam is responding to his text messages, do you think Ryan Poles, and have you had conversations with him about Velus Jones Jr.? It is the biggest name in Bears fans' minds that
in terms of
that they switched him from wide receiver to running back. They're trying to find a spot for him, whereas people feel he has not made enough of a difference and that they need to cut the cord.
Well, that might be a guy that you look to see if he could help another team at the wide receiver or running back position. I mean, that's the kind of guy where I think if it's not going to fit or work in Chicago, you're on the phone. There might be a team out there that needs some help. And if you get back, I don't know, a 6th, 7th round draft pick, conditional, why not? I don't know what will happen with him. I did not speak to Ryan Poles about Velus Jones in particular, but that would be somebody that I would think that they want to see if there's any interest before they moved on from him.
Has what Ryan Poles done here in Chicago, though, gotten the league's attention, you feel like?
Of course. I mean, it also helps when you have 2 ones and one is the number 1 overall. Like, that's great. But he's done a great job remaking that roster and bringing in talent and changing the look of this team. I mean, they've been very active, very aggressive, and he's the leader of that.
There's a couple of guys whose contracts will expire this year. 2 of the biggest names, I would say, Keenan Allen, who they bring in, and no one really expects them to give Keenan Allen an extension at what wide receivers are getting paid right now. His leadership, his experience, his skill set is phenomenal, and it works great with a rookie quarterback. And Tevin Jenkins, the other one, is moved from tackle to guard on the offensive line, and they told Tevin Jenkins' agents that we'll talk again in October. What do you see as the future for those 2 guys, Keenan Allen and Tevin Jenkins, with the Bears?
I think that you want to see how the season unfolds. You want to see how they fit in, how they like it. You want to see all those things like that. So that's a part of it. Keenan Allen, they go out and they drafted Dunze, and they paid DJ Moore. So it's hard to pay everybody at that spot, and they only gave up, I believe, a 4th-round draft pick for Keenan Allen, right? So you want to make sure that Caleb is as comfortable as he can, and I think they view Keenan as a guy that helps get Caleb indoctrinated and up to speed. And I think part of it will be, okay, how important is he? What is it going to cost? Does he want to test them more? Is there a meeting ground? Because these wide receivers are being paid such big money. Do I think that Chicago is giving Keenan Allen $30+ million a year? I don't.
Right.
But does he think he's worth that? Could he get that? If he can, good for him, and he should go get it.
Yeah.
But if he can't, and there's a common ground, and it goes great, then that would be logical. So I think it's how the season unfolds before you can figure out whether a guy is or isn't coming back.
I know that already his impact has been felt, not just in the wide receiver room, but even challenging like a Tyreek Stevenson, who says, man, the way and what have we praised Keenan Allen about all the time? He's just an incredible route runner, and his ability and vision and what he's able to do is really challenging the Bears secondary, which is pretty cool.
I want to ask you one more question about the NFC North. It's quickly up there as one of the most competitive divisions in football. The quarterbacks, there's this group of rookie quarterbacks is turning out to hopefully be pretty incredible, what we're seeing in the preseason. But Lions, Packers, Bears ahead of the Vikings. How do you see the NFC North playing out?
I really believe that the Packers are good enough to win the division. I believe the Lions are good enough to win the division. I think the Bears, we don't know what they're going to be yet. Like, it's all like, how good and how quick is Caleb going to be there? Like, is he going to be great from the start? That's a lot to ask.
It is.
We saw it last year with CJ Stroud, which I think spoils people and raises the roof on things. So I think the Bears are going to be in the mix here for years to come. I don't know that they're going to be as tough and as formidable as those other two teams this season, but I might be surprised. I might be wrong. Like if Caleb comes out like CJ Stroud, maybe they are.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't surprise me. I'm not expecting it today, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went that way.